Are you ready? Watch out! My name is Jill, and this is the second in our three-part series about food, you, and nomadic living, or in a tiny space. And in the first video, we talked about just simple meals in a small space and the different relationship with food that I've discovered in my 7 years of doing this. In this video, I want to talk about the big things that have been head on the wall, the really hard stuff, and that is, where the heck do you get food when you're especially traveling and you don't know your way around, or it's just not accessible? To what happens when you can't afford it? And the third part, where do you put it? Storage has been a huge issue and probably the greatest impact to all of this. So we're going to cover those three things, but before we do that, we're going to take a deep breath and we're going to see you on the other side. So, like I said a minute ago, I covered a little bit in a previous video about the storage issue, about not having a refrigerator. So that was like a huge issue, but the storage issue is probably the biggest issue, because I think a lot of us who do the cooking know that we've saved money over the course of our lives by buying things on sale or buying quantity and storing it in such a way that you have a more comprehensive pantry to draw from. One of the hardest things about living in a small space and not having access to food all the time, anytime you want it, is that a lot of times you don't have what you want. And so, as I mentioned in the previous video, my relationship with food has changed tremendously. But the other thing that's been a huge impact isn't just the fact that I don't have any place to put anything. So the number of ingredients, the diversity of ingredients, things like that, the diversity of cooking, of ways to cook, that has completely shrunk as my space itself did. The other big thing is accessibility. And there's been some interesting experiences around that. You know, I've been in a position where I've gotten caught short. I didn't have enough food and I didn't have a way to go get it. I've been caught short financially where I can't afford to buy the amount of food that I needed. And I've also been, I always keep him fed. So just so you know, he never goes hungry, even though sometimes we have in the past, which has been it's just an interesting relationship with food. And I bring that up because, especially here in America, we are so used to having food 24/7. When I was backpacking through Europe a million years ago, many decades ago, it was such that food wasn't available 24/7. And I remember the first time I got caught short, Sunday, everything was closed. The restaurants were all closed. The grocery stores were all closed. There was no food available. And I was backpacking, so I rarely had anything other than just, you know, a little bit of bread or cheese maybe going with me. We tended to buy food every single day. And there was that first moment where I just couldn't go buy food. And it was a bit of a shock, because in America, we're used to having food 24/7, 365. We never go without. And I mean, literally, you could eat out of the trash cans and gain weight. So there's food everywhere all the time. So what's been interesting about this process is the times I've not had access to food, either because it was too far away, or I didn't have a way to get there, or I didn't have the money to get there. And so this has been a big eye-opening experience for me. And as I've talked about in previous videos, I am not judging or pointing fingers. I really think everybody should have that experience of going hungry at least once. And the reason I say that is because it's so different when you have that experience than it is when you're assuming what it must be like, or you're judging why somebody else is having that experience. And so that was a very profound, those moments were very profound for me. I mean, they weren't pleasant, but they were profound, sort of an eye-opening, oh, if this ever happened, what am I going to do about it? I mean, it was scary and it was hard. And so, and it's embarrassing because you don't want to tell anybody, right? But I'm sharing that because I also think everybody should have that experience. And the flip side to that is when you then have enough, or you're hungry and somebody buys you a meal, that is also so powerful in terms of our ability to appreciate what we do have and appreciate something that we all take for granted. So I'm not making this video, you know, poor me. I'm just making it because it's been a profoundly different relationship with food and space and accessibility. Not having the ability to store extra food, not having the access just because you want access or you need access. And sometimes you find yourself cut short. You just can't. So like I said, I'm not making this video to do anything other than to just bring up these ideas, because again, this whole process around food and being in a small space, it's easy to say, oh, this is cute, I can make, although I have to tell you, the first 3 years I could not get my bread to rise. Now I do hardly anything right with my bread. I don't measure, I don't knead it properly, I don't do anything, and it works out pretty good. So, but I'm bringing it up because I think it's, like I said, it's been a very interesting experience. It's been a powerful experience, and we have a really interesting relationship with food in the Western culture. We use it in many, many ways that it's not actually meant to be used for. It's an emotional relationship. It's a connection relationship with other people. It's a celebratory relationship. But we almost never use it to what it's really for, which is really for nutrition and energy and function. I mean, food is really meant to be part of our functional capacity to go do other things, not the relationship itself. And this experience has really shifted that for me, in that I've had to be more focused on, well, what kinds of foods can I get access to that's going to provide me with nutrition that I may not be able to have storage for, or that it's going to be stored under extreme circumstances, extreme heat, extreme cold, things like that. So it's been a really profound experience, and I wanted to bring that up because these aren't things that I ever planned on learning or having happen. But I'm so grateful that they did, because I feel like they've increased my capacity to be prepared, to understand, to be less judgmental, and to be ready. And that takes us to the last video, which is the most important set of lessons I learned, I think, from all of this. So before we do that, we're going to take a deep breath. All the links are below. I hope you'll follow up in at least one other place. And with that, we'll see you next time.